Okay, so where we left off was that we had gotten this far, and if you'll notice, like the tagline is still doing something wonky on small screens right here, where it says 24/7 residential, and then if I get to really big screen, also, it still keeps doing something weird, right? Because it's set to be viewport width for its size, and its location is absolute, its placement is absolute, but its left edge is based off of a percentage. And so, but we have the Canon Electric SVG set to have a max and min width, so it stops scaling. And so we need the tagline to also basically stop scaling as well. So what I had done in a previous lecture or video is I'd made some notes up here, about where those places were going to be for our, changes. And so we decided at about 533 pixels is where the tagline really started to break down, because that's where our min width kicked in. I think it was like a min width of like 310 pixels for the SVG or something like that. And so 533 pixels is where the tagline starts to break down. And also up above about 1280 is where the tagline starts to break down as well, where it gets too big and its placement is strange. And so the other stuff that's down here, all right, these are just some quick notes that I made from working in the inspector, but I'll show you what I did to kind of come up with that. So if I right click here and I go to inspect, it'll open up my inspector and it jumps right to my H2 site description, and it shows me my rules over here. And first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to click right here where it says style.css. I want to go straight to where that is in the style sheet. And I'm not going to start hitting the plus button and making new inspector styles. I just want to kind of mess around with this right here. So first thing I'm going to do is, after getting into the inspector, is I'm going to copy this entire H2 site description selector rule, and I'm going to paste it down below so that I have the original one. And I'm going to put a comment around it just in case, I want to come back and refer to it again. And so this is what we've got to start with. And we decided that we wanted something that was a media query, so at media, and we'll do screen, and then we go ahead and set this up, and then I'll do a min width. Let's do a min width of 533 pixels. And the reason that I am doing min width and not max width is because I want to do this as a mobile first approach. And so I'm going to make the original one. In just a minute, we're going to make some changes, but I want to make the original one so that it is the first thing that the browser will see if it's on a small device before any media queries have to go and kick in and do a reversal or something like that. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and copy this now. Actually, let's also, just to be efficient, I'm going to copy, since this is what we're actually making a change to, we're changing this H2 site description. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to make one for the min width of 533, and we're going to make one for min width of 1280 as well. Now what I can do is I can just take the properties that are going to be the ones that will change. So for instance, like definitely font size, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that in each one of these. And I'll come over here, paste that in, and let's just go ahead and paste that. Let's do 2 tabs. Okay, and the other thing that's going to change is going to be the left positioning. So I'm going to copy that too. So let's go ahead and paste that in as well. Now, what we need to pay attention to for the first one, we said the original one was going to be the tiny screen, because then the first media query kicks in at a minimum width of 533 pixels, and then it bumps up again at 1280. And so what we've decided is the most common screen dimension, which is going to be, somewhere between 533 and 1280, right? That is going to be what we've already pretty much set, where we have the left side being 14.75% and font size being a viewport width, right? That's the one that's the normal one. So what we need to do is we need to look at the smallest screen dimension and see how that starts to break down. And let's kind of rearrange these things, right? And so if we go to our normal rule right here, you can see that this is where we need to make some changes. So first of all, I'm going to change the font size to something like, let's say 1M. All right, and let's see what that looks like. That looks like it's going to be a little bit too big, so let's do something like, let's try like 0.7M, like that. That might be okay. And then what we need to do is figure out on the left, you know, how far it is in. Well, because now the graphic is not going to get any smaller, and it's not going to scale, like it's going to stay at 310 pixels. We can base our left dimension off of something that's fixed like pixels. So let's try something like, I don't know, 100 pixels and just see where we are with that. And that puts it too far to the left. So let's try something like maybe 75 pixels or 70. Okay, let's try 70. No, 75. That might be it, maybe 76. Okay, that looks like it might be pretty good. All right, so now we've got something that's going to work for really small screens. And then once that media query kicks in, see, watch up here. Once that media query kicks in and everything starts scaling, then we're okay, up until we get to something that's really big. And because my screen is not much bigger than 1280, see, this is where I have to, and what you're supposed to be kind of watching is up here, that number that keeps changing for the width, all right? And so if I want to go over here to my media query to make this adjustment, anything above 1280, we're going to change the font size, and let's do something in M's. So let's do something like, I don't know, 1.5M and see what that does, like that. And that looks like it might be a little bit too small. So let's see what happens if we do it 1.75. That might be okay. I have to fix the left side as well. So let's see what happens if we take that from a percentage to something like 100 pixels. And that's not anywhere close enough, right? It's still too far off to the side. So let's do something like 175 pixels. All right, that's not enough. So we can go over here to 185, and that might do it right there. Okay, and so as we scale, we're doing okay, we're doing okay, we're doing okay, right? And that looks like it's pretty good. And then I can even get to something even bigger, make sure that it's still going to be the same. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. And if you wanted this to be perfectly justified, you could maybe make this 180 pixels and see if that makes a difference. Actually, that's the one that's scaling. But once we get bigger, right, you can make it, yeah, it's pretty close. It just kind of depends on how actually, the left, we don't want to make that change. We want to keep that the same. We want to keep that is what we would want to do. So, you know, if we want it to not stick out here, let's do 180 and let's try 185 even. Yeah, that looks a little bit better, right? So we've got from the left, it comes in 185 and it's a 1.7M size, and it's a little bit more justified looking on a really big screen, okay? All right, and so that's what we've got, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to copy all of what we just did here. I'm going to copy that and put that in my clipboard, and then I'm going to come back over here to my Dreamweaver, and I'm going to do a search. I was looking for something earlier. Let's get rid of that. And we're going to do a search for the H2. Let's look at what that rule was. It's site description. So we'll look for H2 dot site description, and it jumps right to it. And it's on line 472. So I'm going to replace this with the stuff that we just did, okay, with that media query stuff, and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to put it up on the server. And if you're not already connected, it will connect for you, or you can just click right here in your files to connect. And let's go back up here. Let's hit refresh and see what we've got and see if we're still good. And let's do a hard refresh. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay. And, you know, and on a small screen, you might also look at this and say, you know, I don't like the weight of that. You could change that if you want to. It looks a little bit heavy when it gets that small. It's really up to you. And then when we get to big screens, let's see if it's still working properly. And it does. It doesn't overscale and it doesn't shift too far from the left. So that's how you can deal with this using scaling SVG that maxes out and mins out at a certain size, so that you have media queries that make the change for the position placement and the scale from viewport width to ems, or you could have done rems too.